Hello people of the interwebs, welcome back to another video on my channel. This time I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. So I see a lot of top 10s and top 5s for people's favorite Pokemon, but I've always felt that's a little unfair to the bigger regions that introduce a lot of Pokemon for the smaller regions to have the same amount of favorites. Now I'm not saying that's not possible, as a lot of recent designs are really cool and good competitive viably. But I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to be addressing my top 10% of favorite Pokemon per generation, rounded to the nearest 10, of course. So, because I think Kalos introduced like 78 new Pokemon, so it would be a tad unfair for me to do 7 Pokemon. So I'll round up or down as necessary. But of course, I'm going to start with Kanto. Since this region introduced 151 Pokemon, I'll be doing top 15 from least favorite to favorite. Every Pokemon is applicable, so I may include legendaries on here. I will be basing them off design, competitive viability, and most importantly, playthrough usefulness. Without further ado, let's kick it off with number 15. Charizard. Now this used to be my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon for a very long time. His design is solid, typing is awesome, and before Stealth Rocks became a thing, he was competitively viable for the most part. Unfortunately, Charizard being very allergic to rocks pushes him down this list. His competitive viability has seen falter until Megas became a thing, but I think that's where I really started to dislike Charizard in the first place. He was getting just so much attention from Game Freak that he became uncool. I know I sound like a hipster, but it's true. 2 Mega Forms and a Gigantamax before the other 2? That seems a bit unfair to me. That's why he takes the bottom spot on this list. Tentacruel. Now this is a weird one. He didn't really become a favorite of mine until around Gen 6. His competitive viability as a solid special tank and rapid spinner in the UU tier really stuck out to me. Also around that time I attempted a nuzlocke of Pokemon Fire Red, and he became a solid member of the team, earning a place in my heart and on this list. Machamp. This Pokemon is so cool. I mean, he's the Incredible Hulk with 4 arms. Even his shiny form is green. But the first time I had access to trading was during Gen 4, and I traded with my brother to get one in Pokemon Pearl. And he was an absolute powerhouse on the team, and I had always admired Machamp, but had been kind of disappointed that you had to trade for it. And he's always been a powerhouse on the UU and OU tiers for as long as I can remember. Hitmonlee. So after completing the Fighting Dojo in Kanto, you get a choice between Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. I always chose Hitmonchan for its coverage with the elemental punches, but I didn't realize that they were special moves until I played Leaf Green years later. Once I realized that, I took Hitmonlee and there was no looking back. Hitmonlee is superior to Hitmonchan in every single way, plus is way cooler and is based on the famous martial artist Bruce Lee. Its competitive viability has been pretty solid, especially during Gen 5 and 6 when it had the Unburden ability with the normal gem. That was the Hitmonlee that I always used with Fake Out. But yeah, that's why it makes it on this list. Primeape. I really like Gen 1's fighting types, if you couldn't tell. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. Primeape made an impression on me in the anime at first, but I caught one myself in a replay of Pokemon Red, and it was such a hard-hitting Pokemon for me. I've only used it a couple times competitively in the NU tier, but it was always such a good, hard-hitting pivot for me in that tier. Pidgeot. While being absolutely terrible competitively, really being more of a liability than an asset, this Pokemon has been an anchor for my team no matter what starter I choose. Almost like the rival in Gen 3, I basically use the same team every playthrough, except in my Avatar Nuzlocke challenge, you should go check it out, and Pidgeot is a staple on every single one of them. Its Mega Evolution was pretty cool though, I'll be honest. Now at number 9, there's 2 Pokemon, Nidoking and Nidoqueen. These Pokemon are monsters. They're so good in a playthrough of a Kanto game, or even competitively. The Nidos have been holding it down for years. Mystic Umbreon has even said that Nidoking is consistently the most powerful Pokemon you can use in a Kanto playthrough. Their move pools are incredible, learning moves like Surf, Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, as well as stab moves like Sludge Bomb and Earthquake. Really sets these Pokemon apart from others in the region. Dugtrio. While being a pretty good competitive mom, being utilized in the earlier gens as a trapper, hazard setter, and glass cannon revenge killer, it, like Pidgeot, has always been a staple on my Gen 1 playthrough teams. It's super fast, pretty strong, and gets really good coverage moves. One huge downside is its base 35 HP, 50 defense, and 70 special defense. That is terrible. He is about as tough as wet toilet paper. Nevertheless, I always use him, and his simplistic design is actually quite charming, even though it's just 3 Digletts. Alakazam. I remember to the early days of Gen 1 when the Psychic type was absolutely unstoppable, and Alakazam was pretty much the strongest Pokemon in the game besides Mewtwo. Your rival uses one in the Kanto games, and it's a huge pain to deal with. If you don't take it out in one hit, you're most likely going to lose at least one Pokemon to this special attacking behemoth. Its competitive usefulness has always kept it to either the UU or OU tiers, so I got to use it quite a bit back in Gen 6. It has a pretty cool Mega, but the spoons are silly. I used it once in a Leaf Green playthrough and it absolutely killed. As for its design, I like it. It's probably the most complicated design that came out of Gen 1. Dragonite. As a lover of dragon types, I love this big goofball. Its cute, unassuming demeanor and design lull you into a false sense of security, then BAM! You get hit with an outrage, coming off a massive base 134 attack stat. Its design is simplistic enough that it's not overwhelming, but still a pretty solid design. Once hidden abilities became a thing, and it gained the ability multiscale, any hit from full health would take 50% of the damage it would normally take, giving it the extra longevity it needs to set up. That, accompanied with a weakness policy, if you used Dragon Dance before, you are now at +3 attack and +1 speed, giving you free reign to sweep the remainder of the opponent's team. Snorlax. Breaking the top 5 is the sleepy bear thing Snorlax. At first seen as a nuisance to players going through the game as an obstacle, then being a pain to catch, this thing is definitely worth it. Big time. Its HP, attack, and special defense stats are well above average, giving you the longevity you need in a big important battle. With the solid recovery move in Rest and a good setup move in Curse, this behemoth of a Pokemon will win more than it will lose, and that's what makes it break the top 5 for me. Gyarados. You can't make a favorite Pokemon from Kanto list without including Gyarados. Based on classic Chinese dragons without being a dragon type itself, is a solid design choice. It's an intimidating beast and is a staple on your rival's team, assuming you didn't give him Blastoise. With the ability Intimidate, it acts as a very solid physical tank, or if you're aiming for a more sweeper type role, its hidden ability is Moxie, giving it +1 to attack every time it knocks out an opponent, which happens quite a bit. In playthroughs, once you get through the grind that is Magikarp, it is a solid member of any team, and that is why Gyarados is number 4. Starmie. Misty's signature Pokemon is Starmie. The Starfish Pokemon is an absolute beast when it comes to type coverage. It doesn't have the most amazing stats, except for its speed, but the coverage it gets is off the charts. Being able to learn moves like Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Psychic, Scald, Surf, Rapid Spin, and Psyshock, it's a very good rapid spinner / revenge killer, being able to outspeed a lot of Pokemon. I used one in a playthrough of Leaf Green, and I was shocked at how good it actually was. All these reasons and more are why the purple Starfish Pokemon is number 3. Gengar. In Gen 1, Ghost was not a good type. At all. And even in Gen 3, when Ghost and Poison were physical attacks, Gengar had to rely on its coverage to get by. But Gen 4 is where it really blossomed as an OU threat. The physical special split benefited a lot of Pokemon, but I'd argue that it benefited Gengar the most. Shadow Ball, which some might argue might be his signature move, is now a special attack as well as Sludge Bomb. Coverage moves it gets like Thunderbolt and Blast, silly me, really solidified this Pokemon's usefulness. Its Mega Evolution bumped it all the way up to Ubers when it debuted, and it deserved it for sure. Thing was a nightmare to fight. But even to this day, Gengar remains a solid Pokemon to use competitively and in a playthrough, which is why it's number 2. Taking the number 1 spot is Venusaur. Now I used to think Venusaur was the worst Gen 1 starter, but I don't think I've ever been more wrong about something in my entire life. It makes short work of over 60% of the major battles you might encounter in a playthrough of a Gen 1 game. Its solid typing, stats, and design have kept it in the forefront of people's minds for a long time. The gen it really blossomed in was Gen 5, getting its hidden ability Chlorophyll, and it left its peers in the dust. It has always been a very solid competitive mon, and I'd argue even top 3 megas of all time. Its usefulness grew exponentially with its ability Thick Fat, plus adding 100 stat points spread across all others except HP. This ability only gave it 2 weaknesses to pretty uncommon types, Psychic and Flying. And its new Gigantamax form looks pretty dope too, I guess. Well, that was it, guys. Let me know what you think of the list, and give me your top 10% of Kanto Pokemon in the comments down below. And remember, these are my opinions, and if you disagree with anything on my list and want to leave a comment as to why, I would certainly appreciate it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new for new content. Maybe. And follow me on Twitter at OKSYT, and have a nice day, everybody. Stay safe. Peace!